Started. Let's go ahead and call the Estacada Planning Commission meeting to order August 20th, 2025 at about 11 o'clock. Can we get a roll call?
Commissioner Eisenberger,
Here.
Commissioner Stahl,
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter,
Here.
Chair Wheeler,
Here.
Commissioner Tucker. Here. And then we should have Commissioner Perkins attending in person, but as of right now, she is absent.
Okay. Looks like we have a quorum, so we can move on with our commission business. First item is the approval of the June 18, 2025 meeting minutes that are in our packet.
So moved. I'll second the motion.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any need to discuss? Doesn't look like it. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Got it. 5-0. Meeting minutes are approved. Let's go on to, I guess we're officially on the commission business now. Reschedule our October meeting. It's kind of scary. We're talking about October already, but let's go ahead and do it.
I think Alan is at a conference that week. And then I think Elena and I are at a conference the week after.
Okay.
So maybe the week before the normally scheduled one.
That'd be the 8th.
Yes.
You'll be here?
Well, I know I'm free no matter what happens, so it's October.
Alan, is there any conflicts for you for the week before?
So the 8th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now. Hold on just a sec. Let me see. October 8th. I have nothing on my calendar on that day. So we'll say that's good.
And then same time, 11 a.m.
Yeah, let's go 11 o'clock on October 8th.
Okay.
Is there any issues with noticing and all that stuff with anything that might?
We don't have anything for that meeting yet. So if we get something, we'll have plenty of time to notice
Okay,
in between now and then.
perfect. Can you send an email invite to all of us
Yes.
with that? I'm gonna put it in here too. My phone was listening. It already put it in. Love that. Okay, perfect. Let's move on to our public hearings. We have two. Item A is a subdivision and the other one is a land partition and conditional use. We'll start with item A, which is 2025-03-S. Heyman Heights. This is something we have seen before in a previous version. And so with that, let's go ahead and have the staff report on it, and then we'll go through our planning commission and public hearing and all that.
Hello, can we hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair Wheeler and Commissioners. I'm Larissa Gladding. I'm with Winterbrook Planning, one of the contract planners for City of Estacada. And I will get into this application. So we have a subdivision application that involves two properties, two lots. It's a 19-lot subdivision located in the medium density residential zone. And we received comments from the city engineer and the fire marshal on this application. The site is currently undeveloped, and there was previously a home and a shed or garage that were removed sometime in the last 4 years. The site is bounded on the south by Southeast 4th Avenue, as well as developed residential properties to the east and west, and then residential to the north. Nearby streets include Southeast Ginseng Drive to the west, East 1st Avenue to the north, and Southeast Oakview Lane to the east. The site is characterized by moderately steep slopes ranging between 8 to 19%. The zoning designation and the comprehensive plan designation for the site is R2, medium density residential. There's a small portion adjacent to the southeast that has the same zoning. Otherwise, the remainder of the adjacent properties are zoned low density residential. As Chair Wheeler mentioned, there's some recent relevant land use history. In 2024, the applicant applied for a property line adjustment associated with a subdivision application and 2 variances. That was ultimately, the tentative plan was approved by City Council. This was for 13 subdivided lots with a minimum 10,000 square feet for the lots. They proposed a new street that was dead end with public and private segments, and then 2 variances for the design of that street. Ultimately, the applicant did not pursue final plat approval. And I'll quote from their narrative in their application, there was not enough value being created by a 13-lot subdivision plan for it to make economic sense for a potential developer or home builder to choose to undertake development of the site. Therefore, the plan had to be adjusted to create additional value. Thus, the applicant submitted a new property line adjustment in 2025 to set up for the subdivision, and staff administratively approved that property line adjustment in July. This visual gives you an overview of the property line adjustment. The dashed yellow line on the right here is the previous property line that was adjusted to be located where the dashed green line is, as well as some right-of-way dedication on Southeast 4th Avenue. The way it appears now is there is 1 lot at the southwest corner that the applicant refers to as parcel 1, and then the remaining area is approximately 4 acres, and that is what they are proposing to subdivide. On the right, you'll see the proposed subdivision that we're looking at today. On the left is what council tentatively approved in 2024. You can see the difference in the roadway design as well as the number of lots and the lot configuration. So what you have before you today is a 19-lot subdivision for future single-family residential development. Each new lot is to be approximately 5,000 to 10,000 square feet with frontage on one of them. Lot 1 has frontage on Southeast 4th Avenue as well as parcel 1, and the remainder have frontage on the new proposed Southeast Panics Place. The 3 variances requested regard the sidewalks, the maximum street grade, and the maximum length of the dead-end street. And this is just that same information. So these are the applicable code sections we reviewed in the staff report. I am going to focus on 2 of the chapters mostly in this presentation. The design standards and improvements for subdivisions, and then the variance approval criteria. And it's important to note that we have found that all standards can be approvable subject to conditions of approval and the variances. So very briefly, this chapter, it has to do with pedestrian access and connectivity. It applies to pedestrian walkway systems within the development, and then the relationship between that and driveways and streets. And construction of internal sidewalks isn't required until the time of construction of a new building. So staff recommend a condition of approval, number 42, that requires sidewalks and crosswalks meet these standards prior to building permit approval for each lot. Getting into some of the notable standards that required conditions of approval to be met in the design and improvement chapter. D3, for this one, we required a condition of approval requiring that lot 2, which you can see here, takes access from Southeast Panics Place as required by the code because Southeast Panics Place has a lower designation than Southeast 4th. We also have a COA for D5, ensuring that when the applicant or the individual property owners do develop the accesses, that they are spaced according to the standards. And then we also have a condition of approval requiring dedication of some right-of-way on 4th Avenue for improvements as required in the code. And finally, for F4, the applicant is requesting a variance to this standard, which requires that new dead-end public streets be no longer than 400 feet in length, and we'll review that in a couple slides. Notably, for section 030 there, substandard A it regulates standards dependent on roadway classification. Southeast Panics Place would be considered a local street. And so the applicant requests a variance to the requirement that this street have sidewalks on both sides. And then for C5, the applicant is requesting a variance to the requirement of a maximum 12% street grade. So just a overview of the variance approval criteria before we get into each of those. Generally, you need either subsections A or B to be applicable to the circumstances, and then both C and D to be satisfied to approve the variance. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but subsection A is requiring that the circumstances that necessitate a variance are exceptional or extraordinary. And B requires that the variance is necessary to enjoy a property right. C is requiring that the variance not be materially detrimental to the purpose of Title 16, to city plans or policies or nearby property. And then D, that the variance or the hardship necessary is not self-imposed by the applicant, and the requested variance is the minimum necessary to relieve that hardship. So getting into variance number 1, the applicant is requesting to construct sidewalks only on the west side of Southeast Panics Place instead of the requirement of sidewalks on both sides. This is one of the variances that the applicant previously requested for the 2024 tentative plan. So the applicant argues for subsection A that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances due to the site's existing slopes, which are not typical for residential development, as well as that the development patterns on surrounding land prevent future extension of the street to nearby roadways. In 2024, council found that the site topography is neither exceptional nor extraordinary, given that there are similarly sloped areas nearby that have successfully included sidewalks on both sides of new streets, citing Southeast Oakview Lane to the east as an example. Also, the city engineer disagreed with the argument that Southeast Panics Place couldn't connect to East First Avenue, which is to the north, given the lack of improvements immediately adjacent to the north. However, we did find that subsection B could be applicable. The applicant argues that due to site topography, the required sidewalks would create grading impacts that complicate development and prevent their ability to subdivide the property. And while staff maintains that the site topography is not unique for Estacada residential subdivisions, we deferred to the expertise of the city engineer, who did comment and say that essentially agree with the applicant that the grading implications would unnecessarily obstruct the ability to develop the property. And we also deferred to the fact that council did approve a similar variance recently on the site. So moving on to subsection C, we do acknowledge that the city has goals for connectivity and pedestrian access. However, we again defer to the expertise of the city engineer, who did not have concerns regarding the safety or connectivity that are involved with the variance. And then for subsection D, we found that the applicant is not at fault. The site topography is not self-imposed, and given the support from the city engineer that the requested variance is the minimum necessary. So ultimately, we found that the approval criteria for variance number 1 could be met. Variance number 2 is the applicant is requesting to construct Southeast Panics Place to a 15% maximum street grade instead of the required 12% maximum grade. This is the second variance that the applicant also applied for and received approval for in 2024. They provided the same argument in regards to subsection A as they did in variance number 1. So staff again found that subsection A did not apply. However, again, with subsection B, we found that this could be applicable. Again, the applicant is arguing that to meet the 12% maximum required by the code, there would be grading implications that would prevent their right to subdivide and develop the property. And again, we defer to the city engineer who in their comments agrees with this argument, as well as again, the previous city council approval of a similar variance. So for subsection C, we believe that this can be met with conditions of approval, particularly relying on, again, the fact that the city engineer as well as the fire marshal are in support of this variance, and that any safety concerns would be ensured by recommended conditions of approval from the fire marshal, one of which notably requires that all of the houses constructed on the 18 lots with access to Panics Place be fitted with sprinkler systems. And then for D, again, we found that the hardship of the topography is not self-imposed, and again, with the support of our commenting agencies, that this is the minimum variance necessary. So again, finding that variance number 2 could meet the applicable criteria for approval. And finally, variance number 3, to construct Southeast Panics Place to a length of approximately 650 feet instead of the requirement of 400-foot maximum for dead-end streets. And this was not a part of the 2024 proposal or approval. This is specific to the redesigned roadway, which is now entirely public. So the applicant's argument, again, for subsection A was substantially similar as to the first 2 variances, and for the same reasons, staff found that subsection A was not applicable, but again, found that subsection B could be applicable. The argument for subsection B was slightly different than it was for the previous 2. The applicant argues that given the existing topography, the 400-foot limit in the requirement results in an economically less desirable street system, as evidenced by their 2024 plan that was not economically viable. And staff found that this was a compelling argument and could make B applicable. So moving on to substandard C, as with the others, we find that with the support of the commenting agencies, that this would not be materially detrimental to the purpose of the code or the policies. And we also rely on recommended conditions of approval again from the fire marshal that help ensure this. Notably for this one, requiring that parking on the street only be permitted on one side of the roadway to help ensure emergency vehicle access. I will also note that something I did not mention in variance number 2, it's applicable for both of these, is that the division did receive 1 public comment from an adjacent property owner to the east, and that is in Exhibit 10, I believe, and they expressed some concerns regarding erosion that could be a result of site preparation. And in our findings, we refer to the fact that, again, the city engineer did not have concerns from reviewing the applicant's proposal, as well as the fact that we have recommended conditions of approval that require an updated grading plan or an updated geotechnical report, a final grading plan, and an erosion control plan, all of which need to be approved by the city engineer prior to grading activity. So coming back to D here for variance number 3, as with the others, we found that the issue of existing slopes as well as economic factors impacting the desirability of the lots are not the fault of the applicant, and that with the support of our commenting agencies, the variance is the minimum necessary. And therefore, we find that variance number 3 can meet the approval criteria. So ultimately, staff recommend approval of application 2025-03-S subject to conditions, which are in the staff report packet as the last several pages. Many of those conditions are standard, several we've mentioned in this presentation. Again, I'll note that the commission received an updated packet yesterday, and an updated packet is also online. And this reflects revised, like I believe 4 revised conditions of approval based on communications with the applicant and the city engineer, which we've also included as Exhibit 11. And those revisions, a few of them were correcting minor errors, and a few were revisions to the language by the city engineer to be more applicable to the application than the standard language. So with that, we can move to public comment. I believe the applicant has prepared a presentation before commission questions, discussion, and a motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commission, do you have any questions at this point in time? Doesn't appear so. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and ask for public comment. I'm going to read a statement about evidence presented at the hearing, and then we'll have the applicant come up and speak. And if we have any questions at that point in time, we'll ask them and then go back into the Planning Commission meeting from there. So an issue which may be the basis for appeal to the city council must be raised prior to the close of the record at the final evidentiary hearing on the specific application. Such issues shall be raised with sufficient specificity as to afford the city council and the parties an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue. Failure of an issue to be raised at the hearing in person or by letter, or failure to provide sufficient specificity to afford the city council and parties an adequate opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the city council on that issue. And with that, if the applicant and or engineer would like to come up to the mic and introduce yourself, and then sounds like you have a prepared something possibly. All right.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm Pat Sissel with Sissel Engineering, 375 Portland Avenue, Gladstone. And I'm here today on behalf of Bill Highlands, the applicant. So the site is a challenging site. It's been before the Planning Commission twice, been approved twice. In the mid 2000s, it came before the Planning Commission as the Bird's Nest Phase 2 subdivision, which was a 27 lot subdivision with lots averaging between 5,000 and 5,500 square feet. And it basically had a road right up through the middle of the site, from 4th Avenue to the top. And it was in looking at the street profile, it was in more than a 10-foot hole by the time it got to the top of the hill. And all the lots sat above street grade, just because of the terrain of the site. Then last year, Mr. Highlands submitted an application for a 12 lot subdivision, which was approved. And what we found out in having a contractor price the subdivision out following approval was that there just wasn't enough value being created. There weren't enough lots in the subdivision to pay for the cost of the improvements. The site is challenging. Fourth Avenue has major widening and utility improvements that are going to be expensive. Plus, the topography of the site just makes it more expensive because of the grades of the site. The slope parallel to the upper and lower property lines is averages about 15% across the site. Little bit more on one side, a little bit less on the other, but on average about 15%. The other issue is that no street connections have been stubbed to this property. You can see on the top of the page on the east side of the site, that's a developed subdivision, straight line estates, and there were no street connections stubbed to the property. To the west on the lower side of the page, that's the Ginseng Heights subdivision, and again, no street stubs. And then at the north end of the site, there was a partition that was recently approved by the city and developed. Can you go to the next slide, please? And there's a large, it's a 3-lot partition that takes access off the end of East First Avenue. And there's 3 lots that would have to be crossed to extend a public roadway. And I know the city engineer says that, you know, a roadway could be extended through there, but I don't see there ever being right of way granted from 3 different properties and extended past a brand new large home. Can you go to the next slide, please? You can see what the end of this looks like. There's to extend First Avenue, it would have to cross lots 1, 2, and a portion of 3, and then turn across lot 3. I just don't think that's ever going to happen. So what we have is a site that has no other potential access and can't make any connections.
Just to interrupt you real quick here. Lot 1 has a house under construction right now with 5-foot setbacks on the south property line. And I built on lot 2. So I know that it doesn't look like that anymore. So it's a non-option altogether.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I didn't think it was an option before. Certainly not an option now. Next slide, please. So with the new plan, what we've done is extended the street further up and you can see that the hammerhead is turned. My light is dying on me, but you can see it's turned to follow the native contours of the property. And that brainstorm by Bill Highlands was huge in the ability to come up with a better plan for the site, is to turn that hammerhead with the contours. And with this slide, you can see how the hammerhead will have lots on all sides, taking access from the new public turnaround, and it can be done without the creation of any retaining walls around the hammerhead, which is a nice feature. Next slide, please. So this was the old plan, which staff showed you earlier, and it had it had 2 variances with it, one for elimination of the sidewalk on the east side of the street, and then the other was for a maximum 15% street grade. And it terminated, there's code that says that a dead-end public street cannot exceed 400 feet. And this hammerhead was placed right at the 400-foot mark. That's as far as we could get a public street up the hill. And then beyond that was a private road. And the private road can only extend another 150 feet because the fire department, if you go more than 150 feet, you have to have another turnaround for them to go that extra distance, whatever it is, if it's another 10 feet or another 150 feet beyond that. But every time we have a hammerhead, we have to flatten the grade out to 5%, which on a steep site like this really creates a problem. And so we need to limit the number of hammerheads, the number of points of turnaround because of that 5% grade on a 15% hillside. So, because the, next slide, please, because the hammerhead was limited to 400 feet, we had this 150-foot private road extension, and then we had these large lots. You can see 17,000, 18,900, almost 19,000 square feet here. They're almost 4 times the minimum lot size requirement for this zone. And the reason they were so big is because we couldn't just get a road up to them. So they were very oversized for the R2 zone. And so when we were looking at how to create additional value in the subdivision, this is the location where we really focused the efforts. Next slide, please. So with this design, you can see, this is the old design. You can see retaining wall here and retaining wall here because the hammerhead wasn't turned with the slopes. Next slide. And it's shown, this is a 14-foot high wall in this corner, 13, down here, 5 foot, 7 foot, 5 foot. So big walls were required for that design. Next slide. So this is the new design, and the proposal is to run public street all the way up and do a public turnaround. And with this design, as with the other one, Panics Place is coming off of 4th Avenue at the highest point of the site to try to use that elevation to create less grading impacts as we build the road up the hillway. There's about a 20-foot elevation gain from the middle of the site to the upper part of the site. The 2 variances that were approved last year, as staff mentioned, were both applied for again. One is to limit the sidewalk to one side of the street, and what we're trying to do is minimize the grading, and elimination of that 5-foot sidewalk helps minimize the grading impacts. And also, you know, we use sidewalks a lot in our neighborhood, but our neighborhood is flat, and this is going to be a 15% street grade. Once you get out to 4th Avenue, you're on a street that varies between 10% and 21% at the upper end of the site. You know, in our opinion, there's going to be a limited amount of walking in a subdivision that's this steep, and that one sidewalk can accommodate the 18 lots that'll be on this dead end street. The 15% street grade is again to try to create better building lots that'll be mitigated by having the homes fire sprinkled. And the variance 3 is to have a dead end public street exceeding 400 feet. I think staff mentioned 650 feet. 650 feet is the full length of the property. I think it's going to be just over 600 feet to the turnaround. The curvilinear design of the street kind of lengthens it, but it's about 600 feet long. But again, the only way on a 650-foot deep site, the only way to get to the upper end of the site is to have a street that's longer than 400 feet. And that's the need for the variance. And as demonstrated earlier, we have to have a street that long because there's no other points of connection. Next slide, please. So again, the street this is station 6+00 right here. So it's just a little beyond 600 feet long. And then we terminate with a public turnaround. Next slide. Grading wise, it's very flat. up here. This is contour 671. It's going to have a little bit of fall back to Panic's Place. And then same thing, 671, a little bit of fall back to Panic's Place. The grades at the end of the cul-de-sac or the end of the hammerhead legs are not bad. There's about a 10-foot cut on the upper side of the hammerhead, and the builder envisions garage under with living space above type design. Next slide, please. This is the profile of the turnaround, just pretty flat, 1% slope. You can see about at center line, about a 5 to 7 foot cut. And then curbed on both sides of a 20-foot wide turnaround. Next slide. This is the profile for Panic's Place. It's basically flat at the bottom, curving into a 15% grade that flattens out at the top. Next slide. The major improvement, the most visible improvement to the site is going to be 4th Avenue. There are 2 high priority transportation safety improvements outlined in the transportation system plan. One is for road widening and one is for creation of a sidewalk. The existing roadway currently narrows to about 22 feet in here. The dark hatch will be the new pavement section. This cross-hatched area here at the top is where new roadway will be widened beyond what's there today. So you can see that virtually half the road will be new after it's developed. The project's going to dedicate over 2,100 square feet of right of way and up to 22 feet of road width to create the improvements. Next slide. So this is the 4th Avenue profile. It ranges from 11-12% down to just under 10, and then up to as much as 21%. Next slide. This is the upper end of the project. This is 15.98% going into a 20.97% slope. Just reference wise, this right here is where Panic's Place will intersect with 4th Avenue, about a 16% street grade. And this is the east property line of the site, about an 18.8% street grade. So again, we're asking for a variance for 15% street grade. It's flatter than the street that you have to take to get to the site. So next slide. So again, this is the site plan. We hope that you will approve this subdivision, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I noticed in the geo report, they say there's a spring up on the upper area of that. How is that going to be incorporated into the stormwater? And I didn't see that added to the runoff on the geo report either on the addition. Maybe is it minimal amount they're not concerned about, or?
There isn't much, but we do have a storm drain easement here that runs back, so we can capture that spring.
Will there be a cistern or something to collect it, or because it comes out in several areas year round on that hillside?
I imagine it's probably going to end up being a French drain along that property line that runs down to the public system.
Okay.
And then there would be other drains. There is a retaining wall along this part of the site. There'd be a drain for that retaining wall. And then I think you'll see foundation drains along all of the homes there too that would pick up some of that groundwater. So I think it's going to be a combination of systems that takes care of it, but we will run something specifically up there to pick up the spring that the
It would be
geotech
nice
did.
to get it developed, because right now there's mud just flowing down all year round and it misses the drains on Ginseng because they're further up the curb. so it doesn't get caught by that one right in front of this property, the one storm drain. Just rush right down and it comes over our driveways down the hill, so I know that from experience.
Yeah, it'll be a combination of, you know, you'll have drains around the homes, you'll have the drains in the street. The street itself is gonna cut off a lot of the surface water. Then, of course, the roof drains on the lower lots will be piped down the hill. So anything falling on the roofs will be picked up. So the amount of site flowing toward ginseng will be substantially less than it currently is.
And Commissioner Tucker has her hand raised.
I have a
Commissioner Tucker, go ahead.
safety- So, you mentioned that the street is already pretty steep and I live right there and it gets really icy. So every winter we see so many cars slide down that road and it has caused some pretty big accidents. But if a car slides off of that street, they're going to end up in that ravine. And so I'm worried about the safety of allowing variance number 2.
Okay, you know, I think we've provided a safe street design. You know, 15% is steep, but it's certainly not uncommon. It's something that you see permitted outright by many cities in the area, including, you know, the cities of Oregon City and Westland, Gladstone, where you have steep terrain or steeper terrain, moderate terrain. And there is appropriate landing provided at the bottom of Panic's Place. We've flattened it out to a flat 0% at the intersection. And
How far does that 0% extend up into the property?
if you don't mind, let me grab my full-size plans
Yeah.
and then I can answer that question. So what we have is we come back 20 feet from the center of 4th Avenue at 0%, and then we have a 100-foot long vertical curve that goes into 15%. So it's going to be 100 feet beyond the curb line of 4th Avenue before we get to a 15% grade. So that's the landing zone.
Gotcha.
So I understand that, you know, it is more difficult to stop on steep grades, but there is a significant difference between a 21% grade and a 15% grade. So,
Right, and I get that, but we know how dangerous the 21% grade is because literally several of us who live on that street just watch car after car slide down, and there are tons of videos on it that they put on Facebook. I
yes,
just don't want to have a problem.
Yeah, I understand. And the one thing that this development will do is it will be creating that safety improvement of widening the street and curbing the street that you know, that improvement won't happen without the development of the site. So there's a kind of a pros and cons to the development and the traffic.
Anything else, Commissioner Tucker?
No, that was my only concern.
Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else on the planning commission have any questions at this point?
one thought. So far as I noticed that there was no on-street parking for this whole project here. So what kind of sloping are we expecting to see on driveways and stuff on this project?
Well, there is on-street parking on one side. I think the condition of approval limits it to one side
One side.
only.
It's just the hammerhead that there's no parking on for the fire trucks.
okay.
Yes.
Maybe I misunderstood that, but I was going, even that, it's hugely steep for that sort of thing. At 15%, it's a lot. I know Oakview has the same issue,
Mhm.
but I was curious, I don't particularly like what they did with the driveways and stuff on Oakview either, because some of them are just untenable. There's 5 or 6 houses up there, they're just they're just crazy up slopes and
It's difficult for me to say because a lot of that is going to be up to the builder. What the builder has expressed is lots on the uphill side will tend to be garage under.
sure.
On the downhill side, I think you'll see fairly flat driveways on the downhill side, as those are fill lots. So I think it's going to be a combination of some that are uphill. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but we don't control that.
I get that part, yeah.
Uh,
I understand the sloping. I ride that road all the time on my bike, so it's a bunch.
Commissioner Carpenter, you got a question for city staff?
I've got a few. Is Alan on the call also? And you might be able to answer some of these too. A few questions that I just, I'm fine. It sounds like the city has a precedent established where we've approved 15% or more. So I'm less concerned of that just from the precedent that's there. I'm curious. I guess you already answered this question, but the 12 lot approval from prior, it had 2 sidewalks and it had 400 feet in there. But my curiosity is like in regards to like the safe routes to schools that we have and the ability to try to connect sidewalk to sidewalk from that perspective. Do we have precedent of granting one sidewalk or have we been pretty steadfast in trying to accommodate that based on the vision of what we've established?
Like, I don't know if we'd have
Okay.
precedent, like recently the city, when we built the extension to Hillway, did not put sidewalks on both sides, but instead built a shared use path to allow connectivity.
Okay.
So I don't know if that would set precedent, but in that instance, it was to be able to have more space for pedestrians, not less
Right.
space for pedestrians.
Yeah.
Ryan, the last one did just have sidewalks on one side.
Wasn't that in the business park though? Or
No,
was that in
no,
residential? Okay.
Here, the last time we approved this, it was just one side of the street. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that had already been approved from the 2000 and whatever that was there. Okay.
Yeah.
The 2024 approval, yeah, Tara's right. So the 2
Okay.
variances were for sidewalk on one side and then for
Okay.
increasing the maximum slope from 12 to 15.
Okay. And then again, precedent questions, just because this is a big one for future developments as well, is the 400-foot exception. And do we have precedent of extending this? Because really the intention of granting this exemption is so that the developer can maximize profit. It's really for no other purpose than that. And so I just want to make sure that that is something that, is considered, or have we done that before?
Yes, in the Ginseng, the Valley View Estates development, just to the northwest of this site, it's a similar length street. It's a cul-de-sac that was approved in, I believe, 2023. I think there's other developments in town, I believe. There's also streets allowed that were longer than the code prescribes. I believe Eagle Creek, maybe Coyote Ridge. It's not super uncommon for
Okay.
Kurt to sign off on that.
Okay, and that's helpful for me. I just don't want to get us into a spot where, every time a situation like this occurs, we're being asked for this exemption because it allows them to pack more houses in, because the whole intention of this 400-foot regulation is to really limit the scope of what that looks like. And so as long as we have precedent with that, then I would feel good. I just don't want to establish something, as we know more and more developments are coming in, particularly in very unique spaces like this, where it's peculiar to try to jam 30 houses into a mountain. And so that's good. And then the other question I just had, in terms of, we did some work last year in terms of making sure that there was allocations and new developments for park space and or SDCs. Does this size of property and development proposal fit into the scope of the requirement to either designate some type of park space in this development or in lieu of?
That's a great question. I'm gonna have to look back at that. I haven't had my mind. I haven't really been thinking about this application. Larissa covered that up, and I haven't been thinking about the park standards that we changed last year in a bit. So Commissioner Carpenter, I can get back to you with an answer on that. But I mean, for sure, parks SDCs would be levied when building permits were applied for sure. As for, park dedication, no, I don't think that this site actually, yes, I don't think that they would be required to dedicate extra park.
Yeah, Alan, just to add, at least in what is in the code now, in our review, the park dedication requirement was essentially an option, but not a requirement.
Right, yeah, that's pretty much where we're still at with it. I think we did make some minor changes to it last year, and I can I'll look back over those. Yeah, I'll look back over those. But yeah, Larissa, you're right. Thanks.
Yeah, I do remember, though, to do something regarding park space was a requirement, but the developer had the option to either basically write a check to the parks or dedicate a piece of that property. And in this case, only a downhill ski slope would be applicable. But
Exactly.
I just want to make sure, as this is a new thing, the city and our vision is prioritizing, that it doesn't get lost, because there's going to be more developments coming and we need this space in our community. And so I just want to
Yes.
keep that on the front and center.
Absolutely, thanks.
Side of the city, there was rather.
Yeah. Correct.
Commissioner Carpenter, if I may.
Yeah.
I think it was also discussed that because of the limited access to this site and the fact that there's no connectivity to any other neighborhoods or streets,
Right.
doesn't make it a prime candidate for a park.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that, because I think this is a gamble anyways to try to develop this. But on the other end, irregardless of if the park is there or not, we either want to see a park in this location, or we want to see the owner and or developer contribute something, so that maybe in a more flatter space, people are paying their fair share to develop that park space.
Yes, the intention was to pay the park fees.
Perfect. Yeah. Right. I get it.
Okay. Any other questions at this point in time? The applicant, Bill Highland, has his hand up, and if you want to come to the mic, Bill, and give us, ask your questions or concerns.
Actually, just the park thing. Inside, anyway, William Highland, 31625 Southeast Urban Avenue, Cicada. The parcel 1 and lot 1 that actually are on 4th Avenue would be a nice place for a pocket park. It would be relatively easy to create some, diagonal spaces to come in. There'd be like 10,000 square feet, a little bit of a swing set, a roller thing. There's really no park in the whole area. There's a park inside Cazadero Heights. It's inside fences. It's hard to get to. I'd be sort of spooky walking between fences. Inside there isn't, I'll pay, the 20 lots would pay $100,000 SDC fee. So that's like one lot. And if Parks and Rec say would, put out $100,000 for another lot, it's, a pretty good place to provide a little pocket park. If I were a kid, you know, and there was a swing set in the area, you know, you could have a picnic there, you could, whatever. It's a great opportunity to do something. And it's also sort of separate from the rest of Panex Place with a good retaining wall. It's a separate sort of outdoor room. It could work out very well. You know, thinking fearlessly, you know, if the city had more money, if you added the house and lot beneath it, you'd then have, you know, a much nicer park there. And, you know, as you run into, you know, the last piece of infill in area, it's a great thing to consider. I mean, I'm sort of stymied by what's gone before me in connections. But, you know, it'd be a, you know, sort of nice to, you know, it'd be cool for the 18 other homes up Panex Place. You could have a, you know, a staircase down into this little park, and it would be a huge thing. I mean, all of Reagan Hill Heights, everything coming, you know, up above. You could drop your kid there while you went into town to buy something. You know, maybe you could curve around, do some diagonal parking, so you could have, you know, quite a few parking slots diagonally. So as you backed up, the other thing I wanted to say was that the bottom of Panex Place, we needed a bigger radius, so you could do a better beginning of a turn to look out into joining 4th Avenue. And we worked with Kurt McLeod, the city's engineer, to try to, you know, not too big a retaining wall, but also you didn't want to sort of have too much of a 90-degree turn. So you stuck your nose out and you got slammed.
Yeah.
You could substantially, you know, get quite a bit of your turn in place before you committed, because all those people starting at 21% there, you're going to have all that, you know, energy from falling down the hill. So we did try to do what we could there. And then, as Pat said, you know, the widening of the roadway substantially is also going to help there. So I grew up in another area, steep area of Portland, and we just chose to like not leave the neighborhood when conditions merited not leaving the neighborhood, because the track record was not so good and it was great fun. But a small park there would make some sense.
Is that something that we would?
So the code reads that the minimum amount of land is 1/4 acre. And I don't know what.
Two
the
lots would
size-
make about 1/4 acre.
So if, you know, if he chooses to donate, then that is an option as
Yeah.
opposed to, and that would give them, instead of SDCs, they would have credit.
Well, I was saying sort of,
So,
you know,
up to them.
I do $100,000 FTCs give you a lot. And then maybe 100,000 for parks and recs. The city's made a fabulous amount of money from people upstream, up 4th Avenue in terms of FTCs. And there's nothing in the area for them to enjoy. So I think it would be a good place to do something. And, you know, speak now or forever hold your peace. It was nice that Ryan brought it up, because I always sort of was saying, well, there could be a park there. As I say, it's separate from the rest of the space. And if they wanted to make it a ½ acre plus park, the house that's on the corner with Ginseng isn't that big a house. And as you have some of these enormous subdivisions paying $5,000 a house in for the park SCC, you know, you could sort of tell the property owner when they wanted to sell, you know, the city would like to buy you out, because although it makes, also Kurt McLeod, the city's engineer, said, well, why does SCC need such a large park SCC? The whole area is a park.
Sure.
But
That's why we love it.
well, but anyway, I mean, having some swing sets and a roller coaster, you know, a merry-go-round or something in there
Yeah.
would be cool. Your grade is falling there at the lower edge of the
Yeah.
lot, so you could have diagonal pull-in. So when you pulled out, you sort
Sure.
of pulled out diagonally. I don't sort of want to do it all. I'd rather, if I'm going to do it all, try to make the school district more fuel efficient or energy efficient or something. But
Sure.
Well, let's, is that something that staff would deal with after or as the subdivision's taking place and as things hash out?
well,
Yeah,
I
this
wouldn't
is
even-
something-
I tried to talk to Parks and Recs, because I don't want to do it all.
And the details, you know, I appreciate that and I'm for that and with that. But, you know, from the chair that I sit in, all I really care about is that either that new policy, statute, or code, whatever it is, that somewhere in here, there's accounting for what you intend to do. And if that's to, you know, the blueprint that you shared does not designate a park currently. And so somewhere there needs to be some type of documentation or communication of what you intend to do in lieu of that or not.
And
So,
And so if we looked at the calculations, and I'm just really quick math,
Yeah.
don't trust
Yeah.
they would be required to donate 0.23
okay,
acres, which is less than the minimum acreage for, so in that case, it would
Okay.
make more sense for them to be doing the SDCs, which
Yeah.
they would be charging the SDCs. They'd have to pay the SDCs, the
Yeah.
park SDCs.
yep. And that's perfectly fine too. And so is a park. I just wanted to make sure that the code that we had worked hard on is being fulfilled in some way. I don't know if it's code or what it is, but
Yeah, it's in our development code.
okay,
Well, anyway, there really isn't much in the area, and
yeah,
you know, as you're sort of turning in, it could work out quite well.
sure.
And it'd be nice to see Parks and Rec be a little bit more aggressive in areas where, you know, if you look sort of upstream of this, the city's collected like $1 million
Yeah.
or something in
Yeah.
park
I just
SDCs,
wanna make sure.
and there's nothing in the area,
Yeah.
you know, within reason. I mean, as I say, you're coming down the hill, you drop off your kid, you could stop back, you could have a picnic.
Thanks for
Separate
that.
from the rest of my lot, where else coming down could you do such a thing? So
No,
maybe a, you know, a recommendation that, you know.
I think we
Parks and
can-
Rec and I-
can we
talk
make a
about it.
note to city council or the planning staff as this goes through that it's a thought?
It's a thought.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
It's registered, and if
Yes.
we want to discuss that later, then Mr. Highlands we can have a discussion with city management and
Okay.
public works about it. Yeah, we
Because
would
have
be
very
interested in
specific
talking about that.
criteria for land development. And so at that point, if he decided to, instead of paying the SDCs, dedicate that land to parkland, we would have to do the evaluation of that, which does
Well,
not need to happen at the
Okay.
point.
I'll be
And that's
selling
fine.
to a developer. It'd be nice to, you know, have some, but, you know, I mean, there's a pot of money. It'd be, as I said, cool for the 18 lots to
Yep.
have a place to walk down, you know, have a picnic or whatever. And then I don't know how many people are upstream.
A lot.
Yeah, that's a good number. There's
Is there-
qualitative and quantitative. There's a lot. And I think it'd be really cool. I mean, you could also tell your kid if you walk down, you come pick them up later when they call. You know, or you could put a tow rope up to Fourth
Well,
Avenue.
we don't have time to discuss all that, Bill.
One big
Is there anything else you got for the good of the order?
Well, it's a complete aside. Juice Road needs a connection to the highway someday.
Okay.
I've
Well,
tried
well,
to put in camps that could happen.
okay, thank you, Bill.
And I yield the rest of my time back to you.
All right, it doesn't look like we have any other people in the audience. Do we have anybody online? Okay, let's go ahead and shut down the public hearing then, and we will enter back into the planning commission meeting to make a decision on this. Larissa, would you mind bringing up our typical three options of
Yeah.
approving, approve with, or approving with conditions? Adjusting the conditions or denial? And does this go to the city council? So this is a recommendation to the city council.
Yes, this is a recommendation to city council. Oh, I'm sorry, the subdivision approval is a recommendation to city council. Planning commission will be deciding on the 3 variances.
Oh, gotcha. So do we have that, a slide that shows us our motion like we normally do?
Yes, sorry, I lost my Zoom window.
Just to make it official?
Yes.
And will we be doing all 3 variances individually and then the subdivision? Or is it all one package? Omnibus?
You can do it as an omnibus if there's approval for all 4 items.
Okay. There they are.
I'm willing to do the omnibus. I will just state for the record, I don't love the 400-foot exception, but I'm willing to approve it as is.
I'd second that.
All right, so just to be clear, that's the three variances.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I move to approve with conditions as presented by staff. And second.
And I will second that still.
Okay. So we got a motion, we have a second. Any discussion, any further discussion needed? Okay. Let's go ahead and vote on this. So all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please raise your right hand. It's like motion approved. So this will go on to city staff and they will move it down the road to city council. I'm sure you guys are abundantly familiar with everybody at the city hall at this point in time and know the process. So thank you for that. And we will move on to item B, which is our land partition and conditional use 2025-03-LP, the Estacada Community Center.
All right, thanks. I will be presenting that. Give me a sec to share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. All right. All right, so I'll be presenting on the community center partition and conditional use application. And the applicant is the city of Estacada. The property owner are the Friends of Estacada Community Center. And this regards the tax lot at 200 Southwest Clubhouse Drive, which is you all know as the community center property. This property is split zoned downtown and multiple family residential or R3. And so the proposal is a 2-lot partition of about a 0.8 acre lot in the Riverside area, as previously described, and also conditional use approval to develop one of the new lots, which will be the southern lot, as part of a public trail. We've received agency comments from Kurt, the city engineer, and Don in Public Works. And so here's a shot of the subject site from 2022. You can see it's between the highway there to the north and the river. The northern section, which houses the community center, is served by all public utilities. That's water, sewer, and storm. The southern section is served by storm, and water and sewer lines are adjacent to that lot under Lakeshore Drive. And so you can see here that the property is split zoned. So yeah, basically it's composed of 2 discontiguous lots or contiguous sections. Yeah, so surrounded by R3 high density residential and downtown properties. And this southern section is characteristically similar to the adjacent open space property along the river there. And so some more details about the proposal. The partition proposal is that the 2 sections comprising this tax lot become separate lots, as I showed you. There's no minimum lot size in downtown or R3 for non-residential lots, so there's no size standards to meet. And then as far as the conditional use proposal, that only pertains to the new southern lot that's zoned R3, and that would be for government use of land. That's the name of the conditional use requested. And so essentially the city wants to incorporate that sliver along Lakeshore Drive into the Lakeshore Trail project. So here's a close-up map. And you see the 2 new proposed lots, they're already separate. And the long lot to the south is proposed to become part of the Lakeshore Trail. All right, on to the approval criteria. These were the relevant Estacada Municipal Code chapters in Title 16. So it's the chapter on R3, the downtown zoning chapter, chapter on concurrency, which is basically transportation system improvements. And then we had to apply criteria about pedestrian access, connectivity, and transit stops. Of course, the conditional use chapter, and then partitions trigger design standards and improvements chapter and the partitions chapter. And so staff finds that this application meets or can meet all relevant criteria as described in our report. However, I would like to go over the chapter on conditional uses, just quickly, just give a brief kind of overview of the first couple sections. And so the main approval criteria for conditional uses in Estacada are these 5. And the first is that the proposed use is listed as a conditional use in the underlying zone. That the site characteristics are suitable for the proposed use. Site and proposed developments timely, can be supported by existing systems. That the proposed use will not alter the character of this surrounding area in a way that limits or impairs the use of other properties, and that the proposal satisfies the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. And staff finds that all criteria in this section are met or can be met with conditions of approval. And all the details and findings are in the report, but Elena and I will be happy to answer questions about this after the presentation, if there are any questions. I also want to go over this section. So 16.88.020 gives the Planning Commission authority to impose additional conditions which are considered necessary to protect the best interest of the area and the city as a whole. This is just a reminder that the commission has authority to impose additional conditions if you find reason to. But as this is a pretty straightforward application, staff does not recommend any additional conditions at this time. And staff recommendation is to approve this application with 6 proposed conditions. Those standards are really standard, or sorry, those conditions are really standard. I'll briefly go over them now. The first is that the 2-lot partition will be similar to the preliminary plan that I showed. The second is that no parcel can be sold before final plat approval. Third is that no building permits can be issued before final plat approval and recording. Fourth is that building permits related to the conditional use approval can be issued only according to the approved plan, and that would be to incorporate it into the Lakeshore Trail. Fifth is that partition approval will be valid for 2 years, so that means that partition plat would need to be submitted to the city for approval within 2 years. And the 6th condition, recommended condition, is that conditional use approval is valid for 3 years, which is the maximum allowed by our code. And that concludes my presentation. And these are the next steps. We can hear if there's any public comment or applicant comment if Elena has anything to add. Commission can add or ask questions of staff and the applicant, and then we'll be looking for a motion to approve with changes, or deny with findings.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks.
2 questions.
Planning Commission, go ahead.
Getting a stigma here. 2 questions, Alan. The first is the intention to keep the location of proposed lot 1 as downtown, or is the long-term intention to change that into residential? Because again, I think that would conflict with.
Yeah, we recently rezoned that to downtown.
Yeah,
It,
okay.
for the community center by their request.
Okay.
So we are not planning on changing that.
Even if it
that zoning.
becomes apartments, that it would be correct. It's
Yeah.
still.
Yeah, it
It's
was
still
changed
downtown,
from-
yes.
Yeah, it was changed from low density residential. It was just a outlier R1 lot before last December when it was approved to become a downtown property. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And a follow-up to that is and again, forgive me because I'm still learning, but there are no provisions that requires any type of multifamily residential, whatever, to have some form of commercial a part of it. I remember we had a long debate about the studio apartments going in, and the bottom floor needed to be some form of commercial in there. And being downtown, is there any?
That's in the downtown zone. But the section that we're talking about is actually in R3 zone. So the little strip, that little sliver is not in downtown zone, it's in R3 zone, and it would be built as a trail, not as a residential use. Yeah, so
Oh.
their lot is in two different zones.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up the.
Yeah, there we go.
plan
So
just
you could
we
see
can-
the
yeah.
candy striped is
Right.
the community center, and then the like, I don't know what orangey color is the
Okay.
lot that the city is going to be
Well,
developing.
I thought that lot one was where I thought they were dumping the community center and building.
No. The community
Oh,
center is
okay.
staying the same. The community center and the city have an agreement that they will be giving us that sliver of land for us to use to build the Lake Shore
Missed that,
Trail and
sorry.
Water Access Park. We
Got it.
also have an agreement with PGE. So the green portion below that is owned by
Yeah.
PGE. And we
Okay.
have a long-term lease agreement that we're working on right now in order to build the rest of that, in order to get water access to the river right there.
Got it.
How far up is that negotiation going? And personally, I'd like to see it go under the bridge up to the water plant so people could dump their walk all the way up, kids could, and do the
Yeah,
whole loop.
it is just for this portion right here.
That's-
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how far. It goes a little bit closer towards where the new apartments are looking to be built. It
Yeah.
heads that way a little.
But the long-term plan is that, I mean,
No,
I thought there was a park somewhere between the new apartments and Casadero that was gonna be,
yeah, so the Lakeshore Water Access Trail will extend a little further towards Casadero. And then there's a viewing platform and then a dock that'll go down to the river.
nice.
Well, I think it seems great.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is we're approving a sidewalk.
Yeah,
Yeah, technically.
pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty-
That little
Yeah.
sliver will pretty much just be
So
sidewalk landscape.
We have to wait a while before they actually donate that land to the city. Is that what we're?
So
Right.
we partition the lot, we submit that, we get that
Ah,
approved.
got it.
Then we do all the, negotiations and you
Sure.
take it to the titling, we get that all done. And then they donate the lot to us. We have an agreement already with the community center
Ah.
that outlines that they will be giving that
So we're
lot to
looking at
us.
phase one of this whole process. I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, yeah. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next 2 years, we'll build the first stage of the trail.
Okay, any other questions?
Uh,
All right, we don't have anybody here for public comment. It doesn't appear that we gained anybody online. So let's go ahead and forego the public comment since there's nobody here and we'll do a motion.
Okay, I move that we approve land partition and conditional use 2025-03-LP as presented by staff.
I'll second that.
We got a motion, we have a second. Any discussion needed? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. Looks like we voted 6-0. Okay, so you guys will take care of the
Thank
rest
you
of this.
much.
Yeah. There you go.
And then public comment. Doesn't appear that we have anybody still. Any commission business we need to discuss?
I have two things. First, I guess that the marijuana smell thing that we approved last time didn't make it through city council. So I'm wondering, we're missing Jonathan, but maybe somebody could update us on that. And then my other thing was, I'm just wondering if we could maybe add a monthly agenda item where somebody from staff kind of updates us on planning relevant stuff that's happening in the city. I know we just broke ground on the water plant, but maybe not everybody does. I don't know what the mill revitalization project is. It looks amazing. I hear a little buzzing about it. I have no idea. And there'll be stuff eventually, roundabouts or things happening on the highway based on subdivisions that we approve, but we never know anything. And I think it'd be awesome to have just like a quick 5-minute rundown of stuff that might pertain to us about what's going on. It would make it feel less like we're just kind of like a zoning approval board, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's a
Sure.
great idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I second
So
that.
the wastewater plant had
Oh,
the
Thursday.
official groundbreaking ceremony on Monday, but they actually will be starting work this coming Monday.
Oh.
So we will see them out there tearing out the tree stumps probably Monday of this coming week. And so the wastewater plant is underway. We did receive a grant to build a roundabout at Eagle Creek River Mill, and we're currently in kind of negotiations and planning stages for that. So we have to get a little bit of property from the one property owner, and then the city engineer is doing the engineering for that.
So Eagle Creek and River Mill, is there something coming at River Mill in the highway? I can't remember.
No, not anything forthcoming.
No.
No.
I know there's a lot of houses. I'm just wondering I know that intersection long since got into the Ds and Es, and just wondering if there's something, I can't remember if there's supposed to be something.
So
Well,
anything
there's
on the highway would be under ODOT purview.
Okay.
And we've not received anything from
I think
ODOT
you're
saying they're gonna do
probably thinking
anything.
of part of River Mill was Clackamas County, and part of it was Estacada, and I think Estacada just took over all of it.
Yeah, we just at that intersection, I remember when the trailer park approval went in, and then some of those other things, we looked at that, where those intersect with the highway. I know that it's not, the city wouldn't fund it because it's ODOT, but I thought there was maybe some requirement that they put funding towards that, but
No.
must have hallucinated it.
Yeah, and for the mill property was purchased by a local developer. The city has applied for a TGM, which is Transportation Growth Management Grant, which is a joint grant with ODOT and DLCD. And that is to look at developing the mill property and the adjoining riverfront commercial, and how that connectivity would work between those, what kind of uses would make the most sense in that space. And so this is their tentative plan, the property owners, but we'll be looking at, a lot more community involvement, similar to what you guys went through when we did the transportation system plan update.
Okay, so it's pretty early stages right now?
Yeah, we just applied for the grant. We don't know if we'll get it yet. Won't know until the end of next month. And so we'll
Okay.
find out. Fingers
Exciting.
crossed.
Yeah.
As far as the marijuana initiative that the city council said need to get rewritten, will that come back to us for when they rewrite it, or does that go straight back to the city council now?
It would go back to the city council. They tabled it. They'll have some discussions of other options at the next city council meeting. They're not doing a second one in August, so it's I think it's September 8th. I'd have to look at my calendar.
Did we ever hire a new attorney?
We have an interim attorney. Yeah, yeah, we put out an RFP, I don't remember which one it is, for a new city attorney.
I just have a quick question, and it's more of a guidance question, because I really want to try hard to, for this panel to execute the strategic values of that. And one of the things, this is maybe the second or third time this has come up in our approval process, but this is a great example of one, is, the things that we're currently approving right now for developer benefit. I just wonder where that falls. And for example, this particular lot, the reason why they've come back again since 2024 is they realized they couldn't make a profit on what we had already approved. And so they asked us to bend, is probably an exaggerated word, but they asked us to eliminate some of the things in terms of coding that we've put into place to establish our overall strategic values of this community. And in this particular instance, it was to benefit the developer. The city really gets nothing other than maybe 8 more taxpayers and houses out of the process. And so, not that you need to answer this now, but I would just love guidance in terms of our own vision of what are the values that we want to possess? Because I also think we have a responsibility when someone asks to make a dead end 700 feet instead of 400 feet. It's our responsibility, in alignment with the strategic plan created by the community, to say no to that. But I just don't know where our values lie inside of that. And so or two sidewalks. I mean, we want sidewalks in all of our brand new communities.
Mhm.
And the reason why we said one sidewalk was because it costs too much for them to excavate another side. And that doesn't sit well with me in terms of the values.
Well, I think you put it more succinctly than, and I didn't think about it until you actually said it, is you were looking for precedent. And the second we start doing things, and then we're not here to create precedents,
Right.
and I didn't really think about that until you actually said that simple word to me, and I'm going,
Yeah.
yeah, is there an example of it somewhere else in the
Mhm.
community? And does it make sense? Well, I know we're going to be dealing with unusual shaped properties and properties that have a lot of negative problems that we're
Yeah.
going to have to deal with. And the code is not omnibus, it doesn't cover everything. We're going to have to bend the rules a little bit just
For
to,
sure.
just to get them in there. I don't know what else you would do with this property. This property is,
Yeah.
every time I look up that road, I
Well,
just,
yeah.
oh my God.
A ski slope would be awesome. And again, it's, it's, the developer took a risk in even purchasing the property, knowing
Sure.
that it had those things.
Yeah.
But they also knew what the limitations were to
Sure.
develop on it. And they're asking us to change some of those limitations. And, we passed a good plan in 2024
Yeah.
that had 12 approved houses. And that was our plan. And then they came back and said, well, we can't make a profit on this plan, so make a new plan for us. And that's the part, and you know a whole lot more about this, Chair Wheeler, than I do. I struggle with the morality of changing the precedents and changing the values that we've established to make a thriving community in exchange just to stack 6 more houses into something so
Sure.
that they can make it worth their while.
I see the sidewalk. I see your point of view there where that was kind of more of a gray area, but extending the street to me, the fire department did say they prefer to have the roundabout at the end.
Yeah.
For safety reasons, because otherwise they'd have this private road that they'd have to access. So that's a little
Yeah.
less gray there.
Right.
Sure.
No,
as
and I
far as-
100% agree with you, but the roundabout or the hammerhead or whatever they called that was already in the original plan.
Yeah.
And in the original plan, there were 5 less houses.
Mhm.
They extended that hammerhead so they could stuff in more houses to make what they're doing, economically make sense. And in order for them to benefit profitably, they asked us to overlook that particular rule. And so that's the part that I just struggle with.
So it sounds like what you would like is kind of training on when you have to say no based on Oregon land use laws and when you can, or have to say yes
Yeah,
based on Oregon land use laws and when you can say no.
right. Yeah.
That'd be nice.
And-
Is
and-
I want to
Yeah,
understand.
yeah, no.
Because I want to make
appreciate
sure that we are giving you the tools
Yeah.
that you have to be effective as a
Yeah.
board. And if that's what you're looking for,
Yeah,
then that's something that we can do.
yeah.
Well,
And-
This kind of question is the exact. I mean, it was helpful when I started to get some of that training because it turned out there's a lot of stuff that we're not allowed to use any discretion in really.
Yeah.
But these variances are one of the only places where we can use discretion. And I mean, I think that's a great thing to raise as a concern, and, balancing community needs and individual profits. And when we've made some of the zoning decisions and what setbacks, and a lot of that was based on what's profitable. And my question in those discussions is always like, they couldn't make a profit, but what does that even mean?
Right.
Was it just they couldn't make as much as they wanted, or as much as, I mean, he's selling it to a developer who's gonna, then there's gonna be a builder, and then they're gonna sell the individual houses. There's multiple people in there along the way that have to make some amount of profit.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think this is one of the few moments where we do have some personal discretion in our interpretation, and this bothered me less than some of the other variances have, honestly. It's like, well, it's a dead end street, so is it that meaningful for them to not have sidewalks on both sides? It seemed less so to me than it might in other situations, but yeah, I love this discussion point.
No, I
for
appreciate,
sure.
and for the record, I'm for profit. We want people to come in here in order to run their business and make money. I'm 100% for that.
Yeah.
typically though, when we, and I have not seen a thing come across that didn't have a variance. Like never has the city staff said they meet all thresholds, and let's go. There's always something there, but typically it's a mutual benefit in order for us to do that. Like the road has to extend 100 feet longer because it goes around a spring. Or it has to do something where there's rationale behind it that is not solely profit driven. And so, and there's rules in place. So if you want to make a profit, you've got to know that you only get 400 feet of road and you only know that you get, that you have to do double sidewalks. And so anyways, that's just kind of, and I don't know if training is necessarily the thing. I feel good about where we're at and that kind of stuff. I just kind of want to know, and if that comes from you or the city council or whoever, just like how can we continue to further and uphold the vision, and where are the lines where the city council needs to lean on us to say no so that they don't, because that's kind of our role, or to, just kind of be that first layer of, well, we don't want continuous neighborhoods that have 1,000 feet of dead ends, because that would be ridiculous. But we've just established ourselves where it's going to be difficult for us to say no in the future because we've given a couple of these already. And so I just, what are the values of where we can kind of lean on a little bit?
Just because you said yes one time doesn't mean that you can never say no in the
Sure.
future. And at some point, things can change. So say the city wants to evaluate the way that the traffic flows for evacuations, which dead end streets have a big impact on that. And so that might be something that the city council decides, this is one of our core values based on this. So we want to make sure that you don't do this in the future. And that
Yeah.
can change at any point.
Right.
So just because you said yes, doesn't mean that you have to say yes moving forward.
Always. Okay.
Another problem I always have is that little thing that says with cause.
Right.
And when you're
Yeah.
sitting there looking at this thing, it said, is there a technical cause here? And I'm not adept enough to know what cause looks like in this situation, and I'm going, okay, well, then I go to precedents, do we have
Right.
any precedents?
Precedence is
What
critical.
cause, and
Yeah.
I'm going,
I think one thing that is helpful to keep in mind too is this property is a infill property that's on a, I don't want to say skeptical road, but a road that has issues, grade and that the curve that we talked about. And when Estacada started putting its big boy pants on and developing Casero Heights and Reagan Hill Heights and then Curran Creek Estates and everything else, and as we do these things more and more, we're like, wait a minute, connectivity is important. The Hillway extension, like we would have never dreamt that up when I first got on the planning commission. I mean, I'm sure somebody had it on a napkin in a file somewhere, but the importance of that stuff and like the First Avenue on the lot that I built across, like as we were first opening this, I'm thinking like, well, that would have been nice to think about, but it was never on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so as Oakview goes in and then the Cazadero or Reagan Hill Heights goes in, like all of these things have a tie into something else,
Yeah.
whether it's sewer lines or storm sewer or power or whatever else. So I like to think of this as a unique circumstance because this thing's just been there and it's a difficult property and Portland has them too. And everywhere has them. And you can go on real estate listings and go, oh my gosh, there's 2 acres in Portland for $100,000. And you're like, there's no way I'm going to go buy that. And then you look at it, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Okay.
Right.
Never mind.
Yeah.
And there's a reason because it's just hard to develop. And so I think this kind of falls in that box. And so like, I don't know, as coming from the development or home building background, like they talk, I'm going, yeah, yeah, that's gonna be a pain. Like sidewalks on both sides. Yeah. If you can eliminate 5 feet and is it that detrimental to the homes? And like, at the end of the day, it's a free market. So the people that are buying it, they're going to drive up there and go, okay, on an icy day, what's going to happen?
Right.
Am I going to be okay with only one sidewalk? I mean, it's okay for egress. If the fire department's okay with it, I mean, that's kind of the check box I go through is like, if the fire department's okay with it, the city engineer's okay with it, planning staff's okay with it, I'm generally for it. And the president part of it is huge. But again, I go back to like, do we want to, every time we drive up there, go, is this property ever going to be developed or is it just going to continue to go grow blackberries, have a spring, have all these issues downstream? Or can we budge a little and maybe make it so it's developed. And maybe the thing is we go through this and they go, you know what, it just doesn't make sense. Hey, city, do you want a 10-acre park or whatever, acre park, like put a small cul-de-sac down at the bottom and make it a little nature preserve. All the neighbors on every side would be really stoked. It fulfills Bill's dream of having a park there. I mean, I'm just dreaming here, like spitting it out, but like they could go through this and go, there's just no way, like.
Yeah.
And a part of it is there's so many layers of planning, development code, fire, you know, we could just ratchet state planning level, local planning level. And it's like, okay, as you peel back that onion, like it's just dollar bills you're handing out. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, is it really worthwhile to build 19 houses and make a little bit of money? Or because there's going to be somebody's on the hook for all of that for 10 years as a builder.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know. I look at it through that scope, and I know you guys don't, because
That's
you
helpful. Yeah.
don't necessarily have that.
The finance back of it, yeah.
Yeah, so,
That's helpful.
but that, as I go through these, that's kind of where I generally go. And at the end of the day, like, is it detrimental to the houses we're putting in or business we're putting in and the surrounding area? It probably isn't. It's probably a value add for everybody around there. Aside from the couple days that it could be icy and somebody launches into the ravine and that
They signed up for that.
they kind of signed up for that. And it's no different than coming off of Current Creek Estate, or not Current Creek, but Cascadia Ridge, where
Yeah.
people come off there and they end up in the school's property in the woods there. So.
Yeah, that's happened.
So. Anyway, I don't know if that helps, but that, as I
does.
check through these things, that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, thank you.
And to Tara's point, an update would be awesome, just
Yeah.
high level stuff.
Yeah.
Cause people do ask, I had somebody ask me the other day, the mill property.
I do have one question though, one more question about, what's going on across the street with that project?
The
Are they
the
going? with-
PGE is replacing their poles.
Oh, I got that, but not particularly
Barbecue?
PGE, but the apartment building over there. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it's just been sitting in limbo for a long time, or did it just
They-
disappear or what?
No, they're in the process of their building permits.
How long does it take? I
It
think we've
is,
heard
it
this
is
It's an open
taken.
question. We're
Yeah.
working on
Open
it though.
question? Okay.
We're actively working on it, on
Yeah,
solutions and
yeah.
and
it-
end goals and finish lines and whatnot.
Is it a matter of making everybody happy? Is that what the deal is, or?
They are required to meet Oregon Structural Code and Oregon Fire Code.
Ah, got it.
As all developments within the state of Oregon are.
This is a problem. Why?
Yeah, they have
Ah.
failed to meet that. Okay.
Yes.
What's the timeline? They had so much time from the variance.
So they had
that-
so much time in order to submit plans, and they submitted their plans. And now that is in a different, it's not in planning. It's not a land use decision. Now it's in building. And so that depends on the, building codes division, not necessarily
Sure.
planning.
Got it.
Are they strategically moving that pin ahead?
I don't know.
that's an
That's a
open question.
question, that's a question for them. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Great meeting.
Yeah.
Chair
Yeah.
Wheeler, thank you.
thanks, everybody.
Good stuff.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Do we have a September meeting? Sorry.
Yeah, we do.
September
The
17th.
September 17th.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. We'll see
Have a
you
good
all
day,
then.
everybody.
Well,